12 months' time, people may have a lot of data sitting in a Salesforce or cloud CRM system, but they won't necessarily know what consents, permissions, or purposes they're holding that data for. So I suppose it's a logical conclusion that a compliance officer or a lawyer might just come along to everybody and say, delete.
The scare factor, if you like, is the potential for data protection authorities to impose a penalty of 4% of worldwide turnover, or 20 million euros, whichever is the bigger. So there's a big financial threat there. Data protection authorities, though, can also actually impose orders requiring you to stop processing personal data in the worst case. So in some ways, that's the bigger threat to people.
There are things that people can do, even though a lot of this isn't really set in stone and the guidance isn't firmly set in place, but there's still a lot of stuff that people should be doing right now.
It moves on the current Data Protection Act, which is 20 years old. So, as I always say to my clients, if you are compliant to the current Data Protection Act, then you've probably not got too much to worry about in terms of the future. But there are some things that are new under the GDPR. For example, the data subjects, the individuals, the consumers have greater rights in terms of knowing what you are doing with their data, what you're processing.
It's now absolutely clear that any kind of unique identifier, anything you do to single people out and treat them differently online is personal data. So focus your efforts on complying with the rules rather than worrying about the edge of the regulation.
So there are stricter conditions for consent. So if you're in marketing and you want to use my data for marketing purposes, then you have to adhere to some stricter conditions and get my permission for what you want to do with the data. And that could be things like profiling me, segmenting me. You need to get the right levels of consent for that activity.
Every company is going to have to review all aspects of their data. It goes right down into the sort of foundations of every business, and I think it can be used as a catalyst to change the way that companies deal with people and create a more customer-centric way of marketing.
It should be an opportunity, because I think if you're properly using consumers' data, you've got the right permissions, then you can build an awful lot of trust. And if you're putting consumers in control of their data, then they too, I think, will view your organisation in a much more favourable light.
If you are upfront with people about the way you collect their data, you're very honest and clear about what you intend to do with it, and you present that to them in a way that they can get on board with, then you're going to develop trust from an early stage and you'll be able to develop that relationship.
The way that the GDPR is structured, it actually puts publishers in the driving seat. Up until now, we've been in a position where the ad tech sector, if you like, has caused a lot of complexity, but also confusion for consumers. And I think actually having a situation where those players in that ad tech sector can't just willy-nilly go around collecting data with really untransparent trails is an opportunity for publishers, because they're the ones that have a relationship with the consumers, and they can ask for the consent, manage the consent, and hopefully can communicate those consents back to the browsers or to apps or whatever.
I think there are a number of prerequisites to GDPR being a competitive advantage, but they're there, they're available, and we've hopefully stimulated that debate and that thought today.